All right, well, good evening, everyone, and what a fantastic turnout of friends, colleagues, supporters, and students. I'm Paul Ha, the director of the List Visual Arts Center, and now is when I remind you, turn off all your cell phones or put on vibrate, please. See, you didn't do that. Everyone's reaching for it. So it is my great pleasure to welcome you to the 2015 Max Wasserman Forum. This forum on contemporary art was established in memory of Max Wasserman, MIT class of 1935, a founding member of the Council for the Arts here at MIT. This public forum was endowed through the generosity of the late Gene Wasserman and addresses critical issues in contemporary art and culture. And the List Center oversees and programs the forum. I'd also like to recognize Peter Wasserman and Alberta Gershel, who are the son and daughter-in-law to Gene and Max Wasserman. You don't have to get up. And as the List Center and the Media Lab celebrate our 30th anniversary this year, we found it appropriate to choose public art and commons as the main topic for discussion. I want to welcome all our participants who will, for the next 2 days, speak on different topics surrounding public art. I'm thrilled about it. I especially want to welcome back Bill Arning, who's here, who was the longtime curator here at the List Center, and he'll be on one of the forums, and we're very excited to have him here. But he is now the director of the Contemporary Art Museum in Houston, who's doing amazing programming, as we are. And I want to remind you that as part of the forum, there will be a tour of the public art collection here on campus tomorrow morning, led by our Campus and Community Outreach Coordinator, Courtney Clemens, and it'll be in the morning. And if you haven't seen the Lawrence Weiner mural down at Dewey Square near South Station, I urge you to do so. It's just, it brings me such joy every time I get near that glowing blue. It's just fantastic. And I want to thank the Greenway for the collaboration. It's been really fantastic. The List Visual Arts Center is the contemporary art museum here on campus. And we commission, collect, and exhibit art for MIT. In addition to the exhibition program in the galleries, and I hope everyone goes up to see the Rosa Barbara exhibition, it is stunning. We also maintain the art collection for MIT. The List Center also oversees the Percent for Art program, and whenever there's a new building for MIT, we create a site-specific commissioned art for that space. And we're very proud of that, and the fact that we have over 60 pieces of art throughout campus. We think of the entire campus as a museum, and we have art by Louise Bourgeois, Dan Graham, Saul LeWitt, Matthew Ritchie, Sarah Z, and of course the great piece by Lawrence Weiner at the Ashdown House. And we're building all the time, so stay tuned. We're working on 3 currently: Leo Villarreal, Olafur Eliasson, and Anthony Gormley. I am also here to introduce Julie Burroughs, who will then introduce Thomas Hirschhorn, the forum keynote speaker, whose work I first saw in Boston at the ICA in 2005, and it was a fantastic installation. I came out from St. Louis just to see that piece, and it changed my life. It really was spectacular. And I also urge you to go see the exhibition Leap Before You Look, Black Mountain College at the ICA, which is up right now. That is also a spectacular exhibition. Julie Burroughs is the Chief of Arts and Culture for City of Boston. That's a big job. And she not only oversees the visual arts, but she also sees theater, culture in general. Whatever you can think in terms of culture, she has something to do with it. And a little more than a year ago, Mayor Marty Walsh announced this position as Julie as the Boston's first Chief of Arts and Culture in over 20 years. So we're very fortunate. I couldn't really Google any other cities that had this position, so I think we're very fortunate to have that. It is a cabinet-level position reporting to the mayor. Burroughs is tasked with overseeing the creation of Boston's cultural plan and work as an advocate for the arts community across new policy creation. I've heard people say that she's our art czar, yeah? And and she's been in the position exactly 1 year at December, which she's done a lot in a year already. The Arts and Culture Cabinet was created by Mayor Walsh to elevate the art and culture by separating it from the previous administration of Office of the Arts tourism, and special events. So we're really fortunate to have her here. Burroughs was previously the Director of Cultural Planning for the City of Chicago, Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events, a position she held and stewarded for over 15 years. Her work in Chicago includes 2009 Burnham Planned Centennial Pavilion in Millennium Park and the Chicago Cultural Landscape Survey of 2002. Please welcome Julie Burroughs.
Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you all for inviting me to be here tonight and to introduce our keynote speaker. As Paul mentioned, I am pretty new to Boston. I'm told until you're here for 4 generations, you're considered a newcomer. So I'm here a little less than a year. And my presence here really represents a commitment from the City of Boston government administration to elevate the stature of the arts and to invest more fully in arts and culture. So I have many counterparts as art commissioner in other cities, but I think what's unique is the elevation to a cabinet level position. So very exciting. We've been very, very busy. I've been busy getting to know the arts landscape and the arts community really in greater Boston because, of course, the ecosystem extends beyond the political borders of the city of Boston. We've been working on creating Boston's first ever cultural plan, which will really be a roadmap for support and investment, not only from the city of Boston, but through public-private partnerships and hopefully a dedicated funding stream for the arts. We've engaged in a very deep public process. I'm sure many of you in the audience have participated in our process, Boston Creates. Very participatory, very decentralized, lots of different entry points. Thousands of people participated. Just a little over a week ago, we had our second town hall meeting with about 500 participants. So we'll have a cultural plan that we'll unveil in June of 2016, and we really look forward to working with all of you in the intervening months to test ideas, develop strategies, and indeed conceive some of our initial implementation projects. I do want to mention just one experiment that we're undertaking right now, before the cultural plan is done. Of course, we're still engaged in our work. My office is charged with stewarding the Boston Art Commission, which approves public art on public land. And I'm so excited to hear what Thomas is going to talk about in terms of monuments. Boston has a lot of public art that is monuments to people sort of long gone, and maybe a little bit that are more recent. And we've been engaged in an experiment that you'll be hearing a little bit more about in the coming months called Boston Air. It was funded by the National Endowment for the Arts, and it is truly an experiment to explore the relationship between artists and city government. So we're working with a cohort of 11 artists in different disciplines who are really focused on social justice and civic practice and social practice, and 11 parallel liaisons in different city departments ranging from Department of the Elderly to the police department and everything in between, parks, transportation, public works, you name it, to really develop a receptivity for collaboration and openness to change, really a validation of the role of artists within city government and exploring a new concept for public art. Perhaps public art is defined not as much as a monument in a public place, but more of an artist in residence in a city department, engaging deeply with the public. So stay tuned, you'll be hearing more about it, but we're so excited about this experiment. I'm so excited to be introducing Thomas and hear about his work exploring the relationship between the public and public art and public space, and how the public engages in the story and the creation of public art. I'm sure you've all read his bio. You know that he is Swiss and has mostly practiced in Paris, and then has lately been engaging in work in New York City. Please help me welcome Thomas Hirschhorn.
Good evening. Yes, Julie, I try to share with you and with the audience my ideas of monuments tonight. Thank you, Paul, for encouraging me to come to Boston again after 10 years. And I want to express a special thanks to Jordan, who invited me, but not only me, but also Yasmil Raymond, the curator and the ambassador of the Gramsci Monument, and also Erik, who was the key figure in the Gramsci Monument. So I'm sure after my keynote lecture here, there will be the occasion to discuss the outcome, the experience of the Gramsci Monument together with Erik and together with Yasmil. So I would like to present the Gramsci Monument and to speak a little bit about some of my logic, some of my artistic logic. The Gramsci Monument was the fourth monument I made, the fourth and the last in a short series of monuments. I started in 1999 with a monument to Spinoza. In 2000, this is the Deleuze monument, a monument to the French philosopher Deleuze. And in 2002, in Kassel, a monument to Georges Bataille. And the Gramsci Monument is the fourth and the last in this series. I made these four monuments because I love the work and the life of these four philosophers. The Gramsci Monument I could make with the help, the support, but furthermore the invitation of the DIA Art Foundation to do a work in public space in New York City. That was the base, that was the invitation. And it was to me a big pleasure and a big support, and very important to have such a committed group of persons, not behind me, but beside me, to do this work of art, the Gramsci Monument. It was very important, and I'm sure perhaps later Yasmil could add some specificities about the importance to have an institution like the DIA Art Foundation in doing a complex project like the Gramsci Monument. The Gramsci Monument, with the Gramsci Monument, I had a goal. My goal was to establish a new term of monument, to provoke encounters, to create an event, and of course, the hope was with this event to get a transformation. And fourth, to think Gramsci today. This was my goal. And therefore, I spent the time in New York to do the Gramsci Monument. So the monument, my idea of the monument, my new ideas of the monument, my new concept of monument has these four terms, important notions to me, because I wanted to do a new kind of monument towards its location, towards its dedication, towards the duration of it, and toward the outcome. And with this lecture, I would come back to these four terms. So the first, the location. The location, where to put the monument, is already the half of the work. It is so important, I think, when you do a work in public space, that the artist himself or herself decided the location, because it says always almost the half about the monument. Because, of course, to do a monument cannot more mean today to do it in a park or in front of an official building, or to speak in terms of New York at the High Line or at Park Avenue. So therefore, the location, to me, it's very important. And it's up to the artist to find the location. So for the Gramsci Monument, this was my map of New York City. For 1.5 years of field work I did, because I wanted to do the monument where people are living. And this is the map where a lot of New Yorkers are living. 500,000 New Yorkers lives spread out in Staten Island, Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, and in the Bronx and in Brooklyn in public housings. And 300,000 people are waiting for public housings, apartments. So to me, this was the map, and I thought I want to do somewhere where the New Yorkers are living. So I went, there are more than 300 public housing projects in New York City. So I went only to 42 during this fieldwork, which is very important. I told you about 1.5 years, every once or every second month, I spent a week or 10 days in New York in order to find a location where to put the Gramsci Monument. But actually, it's not about the location, it's not about the spot, it's about people. And when I spent the time there, so to go out to find in these 42 public housing projects a location, it's actually about how to meet somebody. How to meet somebody who I could tell and who listened to my project. This is Diane Herbert and Clyde Thompson. They are responsible for the community center in Forest Houses. And I met a lot of people, but Diane and Clyde were the who challenged me and who listened to me in the most beautiful way an artist with a project can expect. For example, they asked me, Thomas, what is the benefit for our community? And I told them, I don't work for the community, I work for art. And you know, then they get the point that, okay, there is somebody who is coming and he speaks about his competence, because my competence is art. My competence is not social work, because they are doing a fantastic social work. So from this point on, we constructed a dialogue. And therefore, the Gramsci Monument was in Forest Houses, because with Diane and with Clyde, I found a partner to discuss. So what I did, I always said, I'm not here to help you. I can't help you. I don't think I can help you. I have not the pretension to help you. The corner point was always to ask, but can you help me, the artist, to do my project? This is very important. It's not a pretension of me, the artist, to say, I can help you, but it's the contrary. Can you help me? This was very important to me. Then, of course, I showed Clyde and Diane and the other people that I had a plan. And this was a map I did. I put everything on the map because I wanted that the people I contacted, they get the point that I have a plan. As an artist coming in the outskirts of New York City to find somebody who could help me to do the work. Then I realized and I known that Diane and Clyde were already engaged as social worker fantastically, I think, in the Forest Houses community. But I call it somebody who could be the key figure. I call key figure a person who lives there, a resident, who with me together does the project. And here he is, Erik Farmer. Because Clyde once brought me in contact with Erik Farmer, also here present. This was a crucial moment for my project, because I met somebody who, first of all, has charisma, who has who is an organic intellectual in the words of Gramsci, and somebody who lived there since 44 years. Erik lives in Forest Houses. He is also, and it did help, the president of the residents, but also why I call key figure, because he was there all the time and had time. And he was, and this is the most important point, and he was agree to help me to do the project. So therefore, I was very happy that the encounter with Clyde and Diane helped me in the end to get in contact with Erik. So Erik was then my key figure. And the key figure means that he organized, together with the structure of the community, Forest Houses community, he organized meetings. He spoke to his neighbors. He spoke to the residents. And he, even better than me, he explained my map to the residents. And also I was really very happy and lucky that I met Erik, because during the whole process, during the construction, he was every day out together with us, during the construction, but also after the duration of the monument. He was there all the time. And himself, he took initiatives, like here, a kind of school supply diffusion to the neighborhood. And he took this initiative. And by the way, the Gramsci Monument could be a partner of his initiative. So I was very happy to have somebody like Erik with me all the time in order to construct the Gramsci Monument. The Gramsci Monument was constructed in 7 weeks. The construction phase is a very important phase because I wanted to construct it together with the residents. So Erik constituted a team. There were 15 residents. The only skill, in a way, they needed, there were residents. To me, it's important to build it together with the residents. By the way, the residents were paid for their work. So it was important to have somebody from the neighborhood to build together the monument. In 7 weeks, we did it together with the help of the inhabitants of Forest Houses. Here is an issue I would like to give to you. It's about aesthetic and politics. The political decision is to do it with residents, which means the aesthetic follows it. It's made, handmade, so made like I can do it. Okay? So this is how aesthetics can follow politics. So the architecture of the Gramsci Monument, therefore, was very simple. I wanted that it's very accessible, therefore we constructed ramps. We constructed the bridge between the two parts of the monument, staircases to have access, and there was a platform, quite a high platform, because I wanted that the residents, the people who come, are actors, therefore there was a platform, and there were simple pavilions, different pavilions to host the structure and the different elements of the Gramsci Monument. And for the first time in one of the monuments I did, there was no more sculpture. No more sculpture about, for example, Deleuze or Spinoza or Bataille. There were sculptures. Here, there was no more sculpture necessary. So the second point is the point of the dedication. To me, the monument, nobody can ask me to do a monument for somebody I didn't decide because love. So I love Gramsci, and therefore I decided to do a monument. So nobody has to share my love, by the way. It's very important. And I'm not looking out to get a context to it. Because I believe that when I committed to something, there will be moments of connections. There will be moments, only few perhaps, only hidden connections happen. And therefore, it is important that the dedication is a decision of myself. So why Gramsci? Of course, because to me he's an outsider, to me he's a hero, but also, for example, he's a big thinker. And also, when I took the phrase, every human being is an intellectual, a quote of Gramsci, of course, it links me together to the fantastic quote of Joseph Beuys, every human being is an artist. So therefore, I decided to do the Gramsci Monument. I made fieldwork also in Sardinia. This is a picture from the Casa Gramsci, where he lived with his family. It's in Gilerza. And I made a field trip to Rome, to the Istituto Fondazione Istituto Gramsci in Rome, where the notebooks are archived. So what I wanted in this monument, I wanted to show why Gramsci is important to me, only to me. So therefore, there was a library. We built a library with about 500 books. And by the way, and this is the first connection Gramsci achieved. There was a connection because in New York City, in the NIU University, is the John Cammett Archive with about 200 books about and from Antonio Gramsci. And I had just to ask them, with the help of Dia, to get the permission to have some books of them exhibited in forest houses. There was also an exhibition. I wanted to make a small exhibition about the life and the work of Antonio Gramsci. There were some photographs. They were borrowed by the Fondazione Istituto Gramsci in Rome. And here on the left and the right side, there were 13 items, belongings, personal belongings of Antonio Gramsci, like, for example, the shoes he had in prison. So these belongings were borrowed by the Casa Gramsci in Cilersa. I wanted to create a simple link from a human being to another human being. The other structure were the pavilion of the internet corner. I wanted to have to give the possibility, of course, to get into more research about Gramsci, but in every case, you could do what you wanted. There was a radio station. It was a low-power radio station. You know, in America, you can have a low-power radio station, and for 1.5 miles, you can send around. And also the low-power station was also streamed on our internet site. On the extreme right is Phil Bader, who is the DJ, who was one of the DJs in the radio station. He actually does, not in the Bronx, but in Brooklyn, he does also sometimes animate a radio. There was a local DJ Baby D, a resident of Forest Houses, and on the right side, another resident of Forest Houses, DJ Gucci, who was the DJ. So the program in the radio was an interview with the residents, an interview with a visitor, and we tried to discuss the outcome of the Gramsci Monument, and sometimes there was music proposed by residents. There was a bar, a Gramsci bar. It's important in my idea of monument to have a place not only to restore, but to hang around. And this was the Gramsci bar, very simple made, with very low prices. And the crew was residents. So they the 5 residents made their own small business into the Gramsci bar. There was another structural element. It was the banners. I thought, even when sometimes it could be a little bit easy, I thought it's a good opening or a good window or a good door or a good breakthrough in the thinking of Gramsci to have some of the banners, some of the quotes of Gramsci hanging on the windows of the surrounding houses in forest houses. So another very important issue to me is the duration. My monument is made for eternity, of course, like all other monuments. Yes, like all other monuments. Because I'm not interested in the object. I'm interested in the intensity of a moment, the intensity of perhaps an encounter, perhaps of something you get, and you don't need the object to be there and to remind you all the time that somebody will not leave there. So therefore, the duration, the time-limited duration of my understanding of monument is very important. It's not about the material, it's something immaterial, who is eternal. Therefore, the duration, the time-limited duration is important to me. And by the end, a monument is about the memory. And I wanted to make it clear, and therefore the time-limited duration offers also new possibilities. For example, the possibility of presence and production, that me, the artist, could be there all the time to be present and to produce something. So the time limits offers a new possibility. So by the way, I was there, of course, all the time in my monument. I was not only there as a presence, but I was there also to produce, to be the caretaker and to produce something. They are my guidelines, presence and production. They are guidelines I invented because I'm not doing community art, relational aesthetic art. I'm doing presence and production projects. So presence and production project means to count on intensity and to count on each moment who can change everything. So therefore, I thought we could organize daily and weekly events. So the daily event, which was something, happened daily. And by the way, a daily event was the presence not only from me, but from the ambassador. She is here, Yasmil Raymond. The ambassador is somebody, here on the left side, Yasmil, somebody who answers not about the Gramsci Monument, but to all kind of requests, problems, for example, to fill out a form, to know how to go to an administration, somebody who takes care on everyday problems of the residents of forest houses. The ambassador was also a real ambassador because I'm Swiss. Julie mentioned it, and this was the Swiss ambassador. He came, so he could meet at the Gramsci Monument the ambassador. The ambassador to me is important because somebody was there to also go out with the group of people, I'm coming back later, to the weekly event, the field trip. So here the ambassador, together with residents of forest houses, went to the UN headquarters. And the ambassador, she had herself, she invented other new forms, like the Gramsci apple, who was in the library for free to get every day for everybody. There was another presence and production an everyday daily event. The presence of Lex Brown. Lex Brown was a student I met once in Princeton when I made a lecture. She wanted to work with me. I invited her to come, and she made, together with Susie Farmer, by the way, the mother of Erik Farmer, and with Janice, they made a fantastic, I must say, a fantastic children program every day, because the Gramsci Monument was in the summertime, so kids had a lot of free time, and it was important from the morning to the afternoon to accompany the kids. As a daily event, there was a newspaper. This is La Queixa and Chacuan. There were residents and there were the directors in a way, but the ambassador, Yasmil and me, we helped them to do a newspaper. And it was very simply made with photocopies. In the newspaper, there was texts by resident, text from the daily event philosopher Markus Steinweg, a text about Gramsci, and on the last page was always a photo of a resident of the day. There was, I mentioned it, the daily lectures every day. Markus Steinweg, a friend, a philosopher of Berlin, made a lecture, a philosophical lecture, not about Gramsci, about big thematics, about philosophy of today. And every day at about 4 or 5, he made his lecture, and there were several people listening to him. And I mention especially Miss Fay and Mrs. Jenkin, because they were the most truthful residents of forest houses who came to listen to the lecture of Markus Steinweg. There was a website. This is my assistant from Paris I could bring with me, and he was there every time, every day, and all the time to take care about the techniques in the radio station, internet corner, and for the production we did. And the website was a website who daily was renewed with the material the Gramsci Monument produced. So there was the daily event, and then I wanted to have, beside the daily events, there was 77-day weekly events. Means every weekday something different happened. So on Monday, there was the theater, the Gramsci Theater. A group of 11 residents did play the play, the Gramsci play. I directed. It was written by Markus Steinweg. And every day we tried with word, with text, to bring out some ideas of Antonio Gramsci. Every Tuesday there was a poetry session, a poetry lecture, because we know the importance of Gramsci for poetry and also the political sense of poetry. And sometimes there was a lecture and a workshop, and sometimes there was a lecture, and only a lecture. So these were the 11 poets who came to forest houses. Wednesday, there was a running event. A running event was an event who was organized by the neighbors, by the residents, and we helped them to realize it. So a running event is called not because it was about running, but it's called running because I couldn't foresee it before. So we did it. For example, a dance. There was a dance. There was the chance again, a link to something. There was Glenn Ligon, an American artist who until 14 years lived in forest houses. And by the way, we are exhibiting together, for example. Glenn and me did the exhibit together several times. So what was nice to make the link, Glenn as an artist, to forest houses. So it was a chance that he was living, of course, and I learned it from Yasmil when she made a preparation that Glenn was there, and he was happy to come and made a lecture about his work at forest houses. There was special events, running events on the right side. On the left side, you see Marcella Paradise, the librarian. She made 2 storytellings about her family and her life she spent in forest houses. And there were kind of local stars like Peter Wayne, who is a singer and who already produced twice, I think, in Apollo Theater. And again, Erik took the initiative to invent a Central Park 5, this discussion about the injustice, this group of people who were put in prison, unjust. So, and again, this was a moment with Gramsci, who spent 11 years of his life in prison. So this was the list of the all running event we did. Then Thursday, I mentioned it, there was a field trip together with the ambassador. She went with a group of residents out of forest houses, for example, just in a bookstore to get a book, or in the New York Times newspaper to discuss how journalism work, or in a repair, taxi repair garage in order to get in contact with reality, or in the post office. This was the field trip we organized. Also, of course, art to the DIA art venues in New York City. Then Friday, there was an art school. Myself, I made this art school called Energy Yes, Quality No. It was open to everybody. The idea was everybody could come. And the question is not, is this art or not art, but everybody could come and we discussed together, does this owns energy, yes or no? Or does it only have quality? The good thing in this, I think it's the good thing in this is there could be, we could create a real mixed discussion. Not only art interest people, other people came and discussed their work. In the beginning, there was only two persons, and then in the end, there were more and more people coming. And we always tried to really define yes or no, does something owns energy, but not to get in a democratical kind of way of thinking, but more to stand out unanimity, to be the home perhaps alone to say, yes, it owns energy or not. Then on Saturday, there was a real Gramsci seminar with a scholar of Antonio Gramsci, because myself, I'm not a specialist about Gramsci. I wanted to learn about Gramsci, and therefore we invited 11 different scholars, like Joseph Buttigieg, who is the biographist with the beautiful Gramsci notebook in the Columbia University Press, or Kavadris Spivak came, or also Frank Wilderson came and spoke about their vision and the impact of Gramsci's work today. So this is the list of the speakers, of the Gramsci scholars. Okay. And Sunday, there was an open microphone, open for everybody in the weekly event who could come and to use the microphone to give over his idea, but also to speak or to make a song and to share something he or she had to share. So what is important as an artist, and therefore I show these pictures, who is the hardcore of my work there? Who is the hardcore? And this is these 4 women. They were the hardcore because they were there every day, every single day, and this is the hardcore. It's Susie Farmer, it's Marcella Paradise, it's Miss Fay and Mrs. Jenkins. They were the hardcore, the non-exclusive audience I could encounter with doing the Gramsci Monument. So then, as I tried always to say, there are 4 phases. Very important, it's the field work is a very important phase, the construction, then the duration, but also the dismantling. And in 10 days, together with, again, the crew, the 15 crew Erik put together from forest houses, we dismantled the Gramsci Monument. I wanted that at the end it is clean and proper like it was in the beginning. And at the very end, we organized a free raffle. I wanted that all hardware stuff, the AVs, the computers, also tapes or leathers or whatever, were spread out in the neighborhood in a kind of free raffle. More than 350 people came, and for 4.5 hours, with the assistance of Yasmil and also Erik, we get through this free raffle, and every single thing were spread out. So fourth, the outcome. So what I want with the Gramsci Monument with a monument, with my idea of monument, to get a different outcome, a new outcome, an unexpected outcome. This is how I see the possibility with presence and production to get to a new output. I cannot speak for the residents when I'm speaking about output. Perhaps Erik can do it. I can't, because I'm not the accountant of my own work. But I can just, and I want to share it with you, tell you what I, the artist, learned. So I learned what working within a community means. I learned why being present is so important. I learned what it means today to be critical, to be skeptical, to have doubts. I learned not to be disappointed by reality. I learned what fieldwork in a certain loneliness and consequently in what dignity means. I learned how to agree with the accumulation of failures. And I learned to hold out the negative. I learned that art is not science. I learned how important it is to insist with nonsense. And I learned that belief in absolute equality, what I do, I believe in absolute equality. And to me, art is a tool to make a form for it. That the belief in absolute equality makes sense, not just to me. And I learned some 2, 3 others. I want to share one with you. It's the unshared authorship. Because actually, in the Gramsci Monument, I realized that we are doing is something in unshared authorship. Look, I want to tell you that I cannot more go forward with the old model. The model of the camembert, we say in France, the camembert, means that there is 100% who has to be shared. Shared, okay, I am 50% responsible, you are 50%, or I am 10%, you are 14%, you are 66%, etc. I cannot more go through with a project like this. This I call the shared responsibility. This is the old model. Why it's old? Because it's total, it's always less than 100. It's always less than 100. It's always 1%, 99, 50, 50, always less than 100. It's always subtraction, reduction, deduction. And therefore, it's an old model. So I invented, even when it seems utopic to you, a new model. I call it unshared authorship. Because, yes, I am 100% responsible for the Gramsci Monument. I am. But what I want and what I dream, what my dream is, that there are other persons who say, me too, I'm 100% responsible. Me too, me too, me too, me too. And then there exists a dynamic. There is 200%, 300%, 1,000, perhaps even more. So therefore, I came with the Gramsci Monument to this idea that it's not more about sharing, but about unsharing authorship. Why it's new? Because it's multiplication. It's endless. It's never less than 100. It's always 100 or more, 200, 300. And that's infinite. And therefore, it's the new model. And so, And the Gramsci Monument helped me to work out this monument. Because, you know, what makes me happy when somebody said, it's my monument, it's my work of art over there. Then, okay, what I learned also is the big question of success and failure. And of course, I was happy too when there were a lot of people sitting there and there were a big audience. I was happy and it happened. It happened. But I'm not the whom now who say this is success or this means success. Because often, there was a lot of empty chairs. There was a small discussion with a few. And again, therefore I show it to you. This does not mean either it's a failure. Because there is a trap with failure and success. And the artist has to be the who doesn't go into this trap of failure and success. And that's, therefore, I show you the empty chairs and how it was also, and even the most of time at the Gramsci Monument. But that not means that was a success or a failure. In every case, we know in art, there is no total success, never. But also, what I learned, that in art is never a total failure. The last thing, when people ask me what is sustainable in the Gramsci Monument, what is left, I have no other argument to say friendship. Thank you.
You did a good job.
Is my mic on?
You did good.
Yeah? Okay. My name is Jordan Troeller. I'm the Wasserman Fellow. In that capacity, I helped organize conceptually and logistically this year's Wasserman Forum. And it's my pleasure today to also be able to moderate a conversation with Thomas, but as well with Yasmil and Erik here. And as Thomas mentioned, Yasmil was the curator at DIA during the Gramsci Monument and is now associate curator at the Museum of Modern Art in New York in the Department of Painting and Sculpture. And Erik was and still is the president of the Forest Houses Tenants Association and himself a resident there for over 44 years. And so I thought maybe we would just start with you, Erik. And as Thomas mentioned, you were really this key figure in especially why the Gramsci Monument ended up at Forest Houses and not at a different housing project in the New York City area. And maybe you could just say a little bit about what that was like. I know one of my first questions when I heard about the work was trying to imagine Thomas Hirschhorn coming on the premises and meeting with the residents and setting out what he wanted to do and what the initial thoughts were in response, and what made you decide that this was worth doing.
Well, Clyde Thompson, like he spoke when Thomas was speaking, Clyde Thompson called me and said that there's a gentleman wanted to meet me, Thomas Hirschhorn. And I'm like, why do he want to meet me? And Clyde said, because you do a lot of work in the community with me, and he thinks that he wants to do some work with you. So Thomas came to my office one day, and first I didn't understand nothing he was saying. I mean, literally he talked like maybe an hour, and I was lost. But as time went, I started understanding what he was saying, and then I think a couple of days later he came back with this map. And they covered the whole floor. And I'm looking at this map, I'm lost again now. I was lost already, now I caught back up, now he lost me again. So I'm looking at this map and I'm like, okay, what do you want to do? He explained it to me from beginning to end. And then I was like, oh, I get it. I understand what you want to do. And there's nowhere in the world I couldn't do that. It was going to be good for the community, because I think we needed it at the time. There was a lot going on that was negative, and that was something positive. So
yeah, did you feel like in some ways it was like Thomas was asking you to trust a stranger, just kind of waltzing into a community?
No, he had a sincerity about him.
Yeah, like there was like you had to kind of take a leap of faith almost immediately, and
well, kind of, because I didn't know Thomas didn't know me, and when I presented it to the residents at a meeting, I showed them the same map that Thomas showed me, and they never caught up. They was pretty much lost the whole time. But so I had to switch it in, and say it in, I guess, layman terms, something the way they could understand it, and they was like, let's do it. So now that I wanted to do it, they said, let's do it. And then they met Thomas, and everyone just fell in love with Thomas. Because he's just outgoing. It's no lying in him. He's just straightforward. He's just truth. It's not many people like Thomas. He's out there, but he's a special guy. I mean, he really is. He's a good guy. He is.
And at that point, you were already involved in in helping Thomas and facilitating where the Gramsci Monument would end up.
Oh, yeah, for a year and a half. I had been waiting for a year and a half for Erik to appear. Dia made an invitation to Thomas. I think we made the invitation 2010. And then by the time we met, Erik was 2012, end of 2012.
Yeah.
We had been working, and at Dia we had a great team of interns and young people that put together packages for Thomas, and we will send them to Paris or electronically of all the various housing developments that he was going to visit in advance, and we tried to make appointments, but the actual field work was done alone.
Okay.
So that was very important. Thomas didn't want me to come along with him or anybody from Dia. It was very important that he went alone. But in the background, we were there with him. Every day, he would report a debrief of the people he met at Castle Hill or Ocean Park, whatever he was, Staten Island, Queens. And he would tell us, today I went to this church, or I went to meet this community worker, he was not there, or she was there, and this is what happened. So we keep monitoring the situation, and I had a lot of pressure from the institution to identify the borough immediately, as soon as possible, and that took about a year and a half. And then also because the second step of that process was to ask permission from the New York City Housing Development authorities.
And did you guys have to go to NYCHA, the three of you, and present the project the housing
Yeah.
authority?
Yes, to the chairman.
Yeah.
At the time, it was
John
Reyes.
Yeah, John
Yeah, he
Reyes.
was the chairman, so we had to go to him pretty much to get his blessings first.
Yeah, and so
before-
how did you present the project?
Well, he seemed like he was apprehensive because
Yeah.
it was more so because there's a lot of crime in the area, and they was more worried about liabilities and things like that. But I kind of assured him like it's not going to be any problems. It's going to give the kids something to do. You know, the more they have to do, you know, the less crime is going to be. And then they didn't believe it, but it was true. It worked. It was not one incident the whole time that the
Yeah,
monument was there. So Thomas kind of took away crime.
I would like to add here something, perhaps for the who are interested in the question of permission. Because, of course, it's not my first project I did in public space, so I know the question of permission comes up, but it is very important that the question of permission, you have not to allow that it comes up in the beginning. For example, sometimes when I went somewhere, the social worker asked me, do you have the permission? And I say, no. And immediately I know with these people I couldn't work. When I met Erik, he didn't ask me, did you get the permission? It's very important because he already knows, he knew that it's not about the permission. When there is a permission, it's him. It's him who represents the neighborhood, the residents, who has this permission, this key for it. And therefore, we only went to the chairman of NYCHA, Ore, when Erik was in the boat. And then, of course, he couldn't not say no, because he knew that the field work was done, that he is with me, with us. This is very important for the who ask strategically how to do it. Never ask permission, but create the condition that the permission is something obvious, because somebody did the work. What's the work? Made an encounter possible between two human beings who has a very different biographies, but are together for one project.
Yes.
And then once you guys identified Forest Houses as the site and got the green light to go ahead with the project, and then what was the next step? At what point did you kind of locate a team of people to work on it from the body of residents?
It was total euphoria.
Yeah.
It happened on January 22nd, I remember, because it's Gramsci's birthday. And it was a snow day in New York, and
cold.
we got the permission, and that was it. Erik had to put together the crew, start getting people to sign up to be construction workers or be the DJs or different things, librarians and so on. And I went back to the team at DIA and said, now let's fundraise. I mean, they had done some work fundraising, but it was the big key was where in New York. Everything is so political. Queens versus Bronx versus Brooklyn. So it had to be done rather quickly. And order the supplies, the materials. I remember we needed how many? 6,000 pallets?
Pallets.
So we had to do a lot of supply ordering quickly.
Yeah, the principal material of the structure, these pallets, And then what was it like, the process of hiring residents and making those decisions of who got a job basically and who didn't? And
Well, it was more so if you want to be involved, we figured out the way to get you involved.
Yeah.
Because that was one of the things Thomas felt. If you was a resident, he wanted you to be involved if you wanted to be involved. So it was security, it was construction workers, librarians, it was the radio station. So we put up flyers in all the buildings and gave a date at a time if they wanted to come to, it was like maybe 150, 200 people came to try to see, could they
to be
be
involved,
involved with the monument?
Yeah, we did that Greet the Artist event.
Yes.
We Meet the Artist event and gave food, and we had a social event, and then we hire a company, a hiring company to do all the paperwork.
Yeah, manpower.
manpower. And this is the good part of,
Yes.
of manpower was that eventually a lot of the residents that, some of the residents that work with us are now continue to be
right
employed.
now they're still working with manpower. Most of them working, and it was like the espresso you had last night, Thomas. It was like the monument gave them a little burst of power, a little energy. So a lot of people they were lazy, not, and then the economy's bad. So it was hard finding jobs.
Sure.
So it's like, Thomas, it's weird when you do something positive, it seems like positive things come after.
Yeah.
And after the monument left, it seemed like everyone just decided, we're used to getting our money every week. We had to get another job. And that's what they started doing.
Yeah, and how many of those jobs were full-time, right? A lot of them?
Yeah, they were 7 days a week. They worked 7 days a week.
Yeah.
What, it was 7 hours a day?
Yeah. 10 to 7?
Yeah.
10 to 7, I don't know what that is. It's
No
a big
days
blur.
off. No days off.
Yeah, we had no day off.
No days off.
For
Even when it
77
rained,
days.
even during the construction, they were like, Thomas, it's crazy. It's raining out here.
It rained a lot during the month of May.
It has to
Don't
be
build a
done.
monument in May in New York.
It has to be done. It has to be done by July 1st. So they're calling me like, it's raining out here, Thomas. The guy's going up a ladder. I'm like, hey, he has, how he is about his art. I tell him, he's serious about his art. That's what he says. Listen, I'm about my art. We got to get it done. And July 1st, it was ready for opening, and we had the grand opening right on time.
And is that the episode that you mentioned in your essay, Yasmil?
Yeah.
Could you flesh that out more? Because it seems like a moment of of tension and interesting.
Yeah. I talk about it in the book, which I hope is at the bookstore here at MIT.
It just came out this year.
Yeah, it's a great resource that we put together. We had been going at a good pace. Thomas has a nice methodology of briefings in the morning, you remember? And then we got to work, everybody got to work, and then there were debriefings. But it had been raining steadily for a few days, and we were behind on the roofs of the pavilions. We had 6 pavilions, and we needed to get the roofs up. And Erik had to go to a funeral in Atlanta.
To South Carolina.
Yeah, South Carolina. And all of a sudden, it's raining, it's getting harder, and we keep working. And Thomas doesn't want to stop, but they are calling Erik in South Carolina at the funeral. And I can overhear. And so there was a little reunion under the tent where I said, Thomas, we have to talk. People are stopping to work. And the concern was that they were using power tools, which was fair enough, and ladders and so on. And so we had to have a conversation. What I thought, people were getting a bit agitated. They're big guys. There were big guys. There was one woman on the crew, Janet, who monitored everything. She was the referee. But also, there was the beauty was when the conversation got to the level of love, because someone was saying to Thomas, "You don't love us." And Thomas answered back something like, I don't remember now exact words, but it was something to do with he loved his work, and that's what mattered. And then there was an agreement that was logical, which was a great conclusion that we stopped working that day. But then I felt bad for Erik; they had to be interrupted. But the next day we continued. Yeah. Everybody came, and everything was cool. But we needed that bonding moment.
It went from Thomas work, and then they started to feel like, as it started getting built and it was almost finished, like, this is ours.
Yeah.
And that's what they were saying, like, yo, we built this. They were like protective over it, like, we built this. You're not gonna, mess up what we built. And I think that's what kind of Thomas was saying. It's his, but he wanted to share it.
Yeah.
And then that's the feeling that they got, like it was theirs also.
Yeah, and that's what you mean by this concept of unshared authorship, right? And this sense of ownership. And you, Thomas, you also mentioned this term dignity in your presentation, and yeah, did you feel like that was one of the residues of the work? Like the kind of, was that a part of what residents felt during that period, or?
Well, during the time, it wasn't long. It was only a day, right? With the rain, it wasn't long.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like a serious thing for a long period of time. It was just that they had issues, like she said, power tools in the rain.
Yeah.
They didn't want to get electrocuted, and Thomas was not going to stop, and and I had to explain to him, like, understand Thomas. He has a deadline. He has something that he needs done. So we're going to try to talk to him, but you know how Thomas is. I mean, Thomas is serious. I'm serious. It's hard to get him to change his mind, but he bends a little bit, but it takes about 50 minutes of arguing with him a little bit. Then he'll be like, okay. But he's passionate.
Yeah.
And that's something that kind of the other guys started to learn a little bit, how to be passionate about something, how to be serious about something, and want something, and all of them didn't have that instilled in them.
Yeah.
But some of them do now.
Yeah, in what way do you mean?
Like I just said about the working situations.
Yeah,
a lot of them was, they was laid back and they was in a rut, and Thomas kind of kicked them out of that rut and gave them a little kickstart, and now all of them, they want to work and they like having that paycheck coming in and things like that. Sometimes it takes something to wake you up a little bit, and I think the Gramsci Monument woke a lot of people up.
Yeah. And in that sense, you feel like it has this lasting impact in the community still.
They talk about that every day to this day.
Yeah.
Now, they're still asking, is it going to come back? And I told them 100 times, that was the last one. It won't be another one. But they still ask. I mean, so that it has a real big impact on the neighborhood.
Yeah. And this was kind of the first sort of thing that Forest Houses had ever done like this.
Oh, that's the first thing that ever been done in New York City, period.
Yeah.
In public housing. That's never been done before.
Yeah.
So that's why we're special. Yeah. We are. I say that all the time. I tell them all the time.
Yeah.
Like we made history. We did something
absolutely.
that even in New York City Housing Authority, they have newspapers that come out every month. And they was talking about the Gramsci Monument in there. Like, it's literally history in New York City Housing Authority. That's never been done before.
Yeah, and so with such unexpected results, I think a lot of people probably, including the chairman, had a lot of doubts.
Oh yeah, there was doubts.
Yeah.
From a lot of people, not only the politicians also, some of the assemblymen and people that I did a lot of work with also, they didn't believe that it can go without a hitch. They thought it could happen, but they thought it was going to be problems.
Yeah.
And it could kind of surprise them when it wasn't. But that's because Thomas, they had a plan.
Yeah.
See, it wasn't just, I'm going to build this thing. No, they had security, 24 hours, 7 days. It was planned out. It wasn't something that he just threw out there. And that was the good thing about it. It was planned out, and things worked out good. It did.
And was there a resistance in terms of DIA as an institution, or?
Not at all. I think DIA is lucky that it's a fantastic institution with a majority of the staff being artists.
Yeah.
And so lots of people immediately agreed that this was necessary. I would say that we had a lot of support from the beginning. And obviously, everybody wanted to work with Thomas, and our director supported. Philippe Verne was the director of DIA at that time, and he was part of the reason we invited Thomas to do a project. So I think that that's very important. The implication of the institution is crucial for those of you who are artists there. The institution has to be totally implicated. And it meant that when I said to Thomas that I wanted to be the ambassador, I had seen Thomas, it was not a monument, but it was one of his presence and productions project at the outskirts of Amsterdam, in Bijlmer. I had seen this Espinosa Festival. And I knew that he had hired an art historian to be the ambassador there, Victoria. And I met her, and I remembered the importance of having her there. So when he said that there will be an ambassador for this project, I volunteered myself to be the one, which meant that I could not work at DIA for the 77 days. and I couldn't afford taking a paycheck. So what we did, a cut pay you got
Pay
me my
cut,
point.
yeah.
Pay cut.
You lived on the premises too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I lived in another apartment near Thomas' apartment. We were not at Forest Houses. We could not get an apartment there.
Okay.
It's impossible. There are thousands
The
of people waiting.
list, yeah.
But we rented 2 apartments in the neighborhood. One for Thomas and his family, and then me and the other permanent people that were there,
Okay.
Marcus, Lex, Roman, and we had visitors that also stayed with us. But the amazing thing was that Philippe agreed.
Yeah.
And then he also said, okay, so the structure is in the morning, before the monument opened at 10, I could meet with the staff there at the Bronx, in the Bronx. So
The
they would
DIA
come.
staff.
So if it was a development conversation or meeting with publications, whatever, I interviewed the people for jobs at DIA, and they had to come early in the morning or they had to come in the evening at 7. And so those were the terms. So I just had to work harder, either early in the morning or late at night. And that was really important. A lot of the staff hang out at the monument, and they will come. But they supposed to have been downtown working on the monument.
Yeah.
But that was great too. And Thomas will send them back to the city and be like if the communication team was hanging out in the monument, he would be like, "You're supposed to be getting us journalists. Go back to Manhattan." So that was great for everybody. I think it was I cannot speak for them. I'm no longer there, but you could investigate on the impact that it did on the staff, for sure.
Yeah. And then Thomas, how does this last monument compare to the other 3? I'm guessing each one was very specific and very different, given
Yes.
the different locations.
This is the most complex, the most productive of the monuments.
You mean in terms of hiring people and building and the amount of events, or?
Yes,
Yeah.
productive to produce, because for example, the Bataille Monument I made 2002, I was present all the time, because I learned with the previous monument, the Deleuze Monument, who I was not there all the time, and we had to dismantle before the end of the phase of the exhibition, because I was not present. I learned when I do a work together with residents, I need to be present. So I learned it from the Deleuze Monument. Then I took this in for the Bataille Monument, but the Bataille Monument was not really very productive. I was just there, but to me, I had much more capacities to produce something, and therefore the Gramsci Monument is to me the most productive in a way that it produced a lot of things with the daily events, with the weekly events. I was not alone there. There was 5 other people there every day, so it was the most complex monument. What was different is also that I mentioned it. There was no sculpture anymore. There was a Gramsci, there was a Bataille sculpture, there was a sculpture of Deleuze and also Spinoza. That was not more the case. What was different is also, of course, Erik mentioned it, the community, the thinking of community, because the other monuments I did in Europe, and there was another a difference. But also, what was to me something who is always the same is that there is a possibility for an artist, because it's art, because you have only art, to encounter the other through art, and from one to establish a dialogue. And this is the case in Amsterdam, in Kassel, in Avignon, and also in Forest Houses in the South Bronx. So there are things, they're the same, and things, they're of course different. So to me, the Gramsci Monument is the monument I learned the most, I can say.
Yeah. Great. Well, I'd like to open it up to the audience, since I'm sure you guys have lots of questions. We have a couple people, one on each side of the audience with microphones. And if you could wait until they come around so that everyone can be heard. I think there's a question here in the front.
Thomas, who are the artists that have influenced you as an artist?
I'm influenced by Hannah Hösch, by John Hartfield, Andy Warhol, Joseph Beuys, Marcel Duchamp, Helio Oiticica, Christoph Marthaler, Meret Oppenheim, and I can continue like this.
Just ask Erik a question. When you disassembled the monument,
Yes.
did people keep the pieces as art, or did they turn them into functional usage?
Well, were you speaking of the raffle that we gave out? When they dismantled it, everything that was on the monument, other than the plaques and stuff like that, was actually raffled off in a free raffle given out to the residents. You know, we gave tickets and everything was given out, from air conditioners to something small as a piece of tape. Thomas was given tape.
There was a lot of
So, Erik, my question is, did people say, I'm not going to make this a functional item, but I'm going to keep it?
Oh no, a lot of
as
people
a-
still, a lot of people have it in their house for memories, and because I know that's why I have mine.
Like
I have a broom. Yeah, I want a broom, and I have that broom in my office. And I don't use it. That's my, my piece of the monument. So a lot of people just have their pieces of it. People got air conditioners, computers. Everything was given away, but everyone just said they was going to keep it just to remember the monument.
Thank you all for a wonderful talk and a very inspiring discussion. Here at MIT, the pressure from the engineers is always, is it scalable?
Yeah.
So part of my question is and of course Bataille helps us theorize excess and the sacrificial economy, but my question is, what was the budget for this? Could Boston afford something like this?
Yeah.
77 days, 200 people, salaries from 10 to 7. Anyway, if that could be discussed, I would really learn from
I
it.
talk about it in a footnote in my essay, so I can direct you there. But I would say that the most important thing was also to learn to be transparent as an institution. We had to be very transparent with Thomas from the beginning, and Thomas had to be very transparent with me about the expenses. So he's very organized, so he knew how to do this also, how to do numbers, and we thought as much as possible on the numbers in advance. And we were very fortunate too that we received a lot of funding, Andy Warhol Foundation, private donations from Switzerland, the Swiss government, and then DIA trustees supported this project. So the budget itself was not that big. It's probably the average exhibition budget at DIA. What you need to do, I can consult, you can come and tell you, and over the phone or whatever. What you need to do is that dedicate the majority of the budget for the labor. Mm-hmm. That was the most important thing. It was more than half of the budget, the labor costs. Mm-hmm. But then we were also blessed by the fact that DIA, because it has all these artists working in it, Jim Shoffley, who's the director of operations of DIA, he has been there since the past 35 years. He worked for Dan Flavin in 1970s. And Jim knows many people in New York City and many people who do permits. And so we were very lucky to have someone like Jim. It costs a lot of money to have someone like Jim when you don't have a Jim. So he was the magician who got us a permit that for the duration of the monument, we were on a construction site. We were never a building. And therefore, we were able to maneuver some things, and he got us an architect to put his license on the table. in the event that something went wrong. But we trusted Thomas a lot, that we knew that nothing was going to go wrong with that foundation of the pallets. He had done that before. And so we had some sound engineering in the project, but it was built by people who don't know anything about carpentry, including Thomas, who doesn't know anything about carpentry. But we had Jim, who knows a lot, so he will check things. So yeah, Jim, I can give you his number.
Erik, was that also an issue with the residents, transparency about money and what was being spent on what? And
yeah, I was asked several times, like how much they paid us to do something like that. I had no clue. Actually, I honestly didn't care. That wasn't, what I was supposed to be worried about. I was more so worried about making sure that the people are helping Thomas and doing what Thomas needed them to do. But they were paid really nice for when minimum wage was $8.25 at the time, I believe.
Yeah.
So they were paid really well for them 77 days, and they all were very grateful. They were beyond grateful. So yeah, Dion, I don't know how they pulled it off, but I'm like her, like I don't know how they pulled that off. I don't.
So yeah, may I? Actually, I have a question for Erik as well. So now, my heart was bleeding. I was seeing this monument going down, just like yours were. I'm just wondering, do you think that, or do you think you might want to actually initiate something within your own community now that you know how to do it? You would sort of just, ultimately you could if you wanted to, no?
Yeah, we could. Me and Clyde Thompson, the gentleman he spoke about earlier in his film, we spoke about it. But the funding from it and to get somebody to pay for that is almost, I won't say impossible, but it'd be really hard. So what we tried to do is this summer, we were trying to do little things with art. We hired a guy to do art with the kids in the community center to try to just keep them liking art, because a lot of the kids was getting interested in art, because of Thomas. So we hired a guy, Amar, and he was coming in, and he was teaching the kids how to do art. But to do something big like that, it's costly. Yeah, like she said, just the people working was a lot. Because was it 70 people? Around 70 people, right? 7 days a week, 7 hours a day. It's a lot, to do. But I wish we could.
I wanted to compliment each one of you. It must have been an amazing project, and you all became family thanks to Thomas's infectious enthusiasm. I'm just curious to know, during the dismantling period, how each one of you felt and how the residents felt. Here was this monumental project that continued for 77 glorious days. How did everybody feel? I personally would be very sad. All these kids that had amazing instruction, amazing things to do each day, after 77 days, what happened? You hired Amar, but was there a depression period, a sadness?
Oh, it was. It was.
How did each one of you feel during that dismantling?
Well, I know I was sad. Not many things make me tear up, but that touched me. And the kids cried. Remember that, Thomas? The kids was crying. Miss Faye and Miss Jenkins, they were crying. It was sad. It really was. The night that we had the last night, and everyone came up and we spoke. Everyone is hugging and crying, and it was sad, but it was good too, because we made friendships out of all that. Like, people still call Yasmil, and she's not even with Dion anymore. I don't know how he found her, but he found her. So it was a bad thing. It wasn't bad. It was sad, but it was great also, because it was happy tears. It was happy that we met Thomas, and was happy we had a great 77 days, but it was just sad that it's going to be gone. But it's gone on the physical sense, but not in our mental. It's always going to be there.
So to me, I would like a little bit you know, it's the question about sadness and about something is not more there. I would like to introduce the question of transformation. I mentioned it in the beginning. I mentioned it, one of my goals is, are I able to create an event? Yes, I am. But the question is, does this event allow a transformation? You know? What is a transformation? When you're reading a book is an object. You read the book. After you finish the book, there can be a transformation happen in you. And I see my work like this. It's not sure that there will be a transformation. It's not more the same thing. The book once read, it's not more the same thing than the unread book. You know, it's about this, and it's about this in general. It's about an encounter. It's about a moment, a precious, very precarious moment, whatever you have when you meet somebody. Perhaps you have a discussion in the train, in the airplane, wherever, with your neighbor, unexpected. And it's about, does this event, perhaps this small event, does this allow a transformation in you? You know, it's about this. It's not about taking away something. It's not about to be sad. Why not? Of course. But you can be sad. It's not a problem. But it's about, the big question remains, did the Gramsci Monument allow a transformation?
Yasmil, did you want to say anything about?
Well, for me, it was horrible to go back to work in Manhattan after working in the South Bronx. And it took some thinking. You know, we were dancing almost every day and singing, and there were issues too, but there was also great joy and fun. For me, it was the Utopic Museum, that you could walk 5 minutes from where you live and be at your job, that you know people's name who are the visitors, and that they keep returning. Our museums now our museums are built for tourism. They are the majority of our audiences. You never see them again. So there I was having a whole different experience of what it means to be a curator. And also to be for a long-term engagement with an artist and with other members of a community together. So it was having a party every day for 77 days. So there was a high. We were very high on these. And then I had to go back to work on Monday. It was abrupt. But we pulled it through. I think that eventually we all got adjusted. People do it all the time. This is not unusual. I want to mention one visitor we had one day that was coming from the UN. A head person in the top of the UN came to see the monument, and I forget his name now, but he's thanked here. And he was from Ireland, and I remember we spent a great deal of time talking about what they do at the UN to keep people who go on peace mission engage with their life at home while they are on their missions, because they're there for a very long time and they create relationships and friendships, and they may not want to return to their houses and their apartments in cities where they are originally from. And this is it's not unique to us only. There are many, many people in the world doing this in different places.
It was really, really inspiring. Thank you. My question was actually about, it seems like there's a lot of clarity that you actually bring to this project and to the way that you're sharing it and your reflections on it. You know, you have 4 goals. You have four things that you're focused on in terms of your rethinking monument. Your lessons learned are kind of itemized, and I'm kind of curious. Obviously, it was 2013, as we see here, and it took a long time coming together. And I'm curious about that clarity that you have in how you frame it and reflect on it, and sort of how that came to be. If it was a clarity that you had at the outset, or something that crystallized throughout the project.
Yeah, I mean, clarity is important. Each artist is clear. No? Lawrence. Every artist is completely clear. He has his logic or her logic. You need a completely clear logic. That doesn't mean that the other gets the logic, of course not. But you must be so precise as you can. And I am completely precise. That doesn't mean after the aesthetic reflects this or whatever. But of course, to do a project like this needs to be really very clear. I'm in a kind of war, but not against something, but for something, for something. So you must be very clear, you must have your guidelines, and you must go through it. You want or not. You cannot change it in the middle. You know what I mean? And you have to go through the conflicts. And to respond to your question, therefore the map was already important to me because everything was written on the map. It was not important that everybody gets, what's on the map. But to me, I only put what is really essential for me, was it necessary for me. And therefore, then there is a chance. I only say there is a chance to go and to make such a project with clarity, with preciseness, but also with exaggeration, and also with a kind of headlessness, of course, in doing it. And that combination between preciseness and exaggeration, that's something to me as an artist very important. I try to follow. And here, of course, specifically in the discussion, in the fights, in the arcs we had all together, it is so important, for example, to say, when I told you, the word help is not only a word. It's also in difficult moments, you can think that you told me, you will help me to do it. Or to say, I'm not a social worker, I am an artist. In the very difficult moment, it helps a lot. Why it helps? Not because it puts me in a privileged situation, because it's something the other can understand, that you have another logic. And these different logics, they can do it together when there's clarity in it. For example, a social worker. He has his logic, who must not always be the logic of the artist. But what I have admiration, I know that there is a competence coming. So what I want is to confront the competences. And therefore, you need to be very, very clear.
But it's interesting, too, how Erik also served this role of translator with when things weren't so clear to everyone else but you. And what an essential role that was.
Absolutely.
And
very important.
Yeah.
Very, very important, of course, because Erik always, when we had this discussion, he said, okay, but I was agree with you to do it. Mm-hmm. So, and of course, he took it on himself, and also he tried then, of course, to explain to the others, because he was with me completely. We made it together. So he tried to explain, and like you say, it's true, to translate it, and also to, of course, to give me the credit. Of course, the credit, because you can only base a work like this when you were very clear with the person, loyal, and we were always very loyal, even when we don't agree with something. It needs this loyalty, of course.
Could you give us an example of something that you disagreed on?
Oh, God.
And how you... or a really good one.
Oh, God. Oh, there's so many things we disagree.
I can think of one.
Yeah, what's a good one?
Getting paid.
The person who didn't show up.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Thomas, it was, there were some guys that would not show up to work, but Thomas would still pay them. And I thought that was wrong. I didn't agree with it, and Thomas he was adamant that he's going to pay them, and I'm telling him, no, you can't do that. Because I was always taught you get paid for the work you put in. If you didn't put in no work, you shouldn't get paid. And Thomas didn't want to agree with that. And we bumped heads. We argued many days about that. And it even turned some of the guys like saying, why are you worried about us getting paid? No, it's not. It's the principle. I felt you was trying to take advantage of him. And I don't think that's right. If he's going to pay you, do your work, do your job. And Thomas, oh man. I just couldn't let, because I just felt I brung Thomas there. I was with Thomas. At this point, he was my brother. And I just couldn't see them taking advantage of him. So that's why we bump heads, because Thomas didn't care about that. All he cared about is art. But see, I care about the other stuff. Like, because when you leave, they got to understand you don't get paid for something you don't do. So they might as well learn that now, because they're going to have to do it later anyway. But Thomas was like, no, I don't care. As long as it gets done. No, I didn't see it that way.
Can I add something? This was really very important. It's not a detail, but by the way, this was one of the points where it really, to me, made sense to say I am an artist, but not in the way to say I don't care. But my idea was to work with residents, and the fact that they don't show up is part of their being resident. You know what I mean? They have problems perhaps at home. They have a lot of problems that makes they cannot show up. And we are still disagree, but I'm still thinking the idea to work with residents includes the fact, by the way, first of all, it's not me who choose the people, okay? So it's,
So you put it all on me, you see that, right?
No, it's important. It's an important thing because we know where the best people are working, no? They have already a job, the best ones. So when you go to the neighborhood, and therefore I thought it's a political decision. You say, okay, I work with residents. And therefore, it was the idea that working with residents includes the fact that, that perhaps they are not very disciplined, not all of them. They're not so good workers, and perhaps they have a lot of other problems than to do work. And we had to confront it, and I was not good in this, of course. I was bad, but to go back to the question of clarity, but it helped to me, and I accept completely the point of view of Erik and of Clyde, who as street worker, who as social worker, in the community center, over years, they told the people only when you make an effort, it can be paid. And I'm not putting this into question. I'm not arguing against this. But the only thing is, when you do a work in public space and you say, I would like, the only quality of the people is to be residents, then you have to go, as an artist, you have to go completely through it. And not to, at one point, you cannot say, you don't work, you are not paid. And this was a very important point. And I'm still believing it was for the project something positive. Because you put, of course, people are profit. Erik helped me. He wanted to protect me. And this was fantastic. And it was his inner role. He wanted to protect me, of course, to not be exploited, of course. But by the way, he gave me also the occasion, and this is important, to speak out that I believe in something else than only, when you're doing something you paid for, that the money, in effect, okay, we need it, everybody needs money, me too, but there is something bigger behind. And I could speak it out, and this was a great occasion. And I'm still, for example, I'm still believing even the who didn't show up and less and less. He was never, I refuse to exclude anybody. You understand it? I never want to exclude somebody from the project. And it's not because I'm a weak guy or I'm not strong enough or I'm afraid, but it's about art. Art is not exclusion. You cannot exclude anybody. So you cannot exclude somebody even when he's a thief, even when he is giving a hard time to you, even when he's not disciplined. You cannot exclude it. And therefore, there was this arc with with the social
We
work.
welcome it. We welcome it with open arms.
Still,
What did you say? What did you say?
you still think like that.
2 years later.
2 years later, you still say the same thing.
And when these kind of disagreements would come up, I guess quite often, Dia could just stay out of it and let them unfold as they did, or did you get pressure from on an institutional level to mediate?
You know, the problem with me and Thomas is that I am next to Thomas. I'm not in front of Thomas or behind Thomas. So I was doing the same with Dia.
Yeah.
My role as a curator is to work for artists and in whatever institution I'm in. So then my role was to communicate as clearly as possible what I thought were principles for his methodology as an artist. Does not mean that every artist that work at Dia will do this. I mean, it was very specific to Thomas. This is his methodology. And I will do it for another artist if that was their methodology. I think it's very important to be the translator to the institution. So in a way, what Erik was doing on the ground with the residents, I was doing
Like with the
downtown
yeah.
in Chelsea, with pleasure.
I think there's a few more questions.
My question is a little bit superficial. It's about it's about form and style. So if someone, when I've walked into Thomas Hirschhorn installations in the past, there's something immediately recognizable as a style to me, whether it's the plastic packing tape, the brown plastic packing tape, or Barbie dolls, or something like that. And you really didn't talk about visual style at all in your description of the project. And there's something about it that did seem consistent to me between the white plastic patio chairs that all had Gramsci Monument scribbled in the exact same font, in black marker, which was very casual, or the sort of like curtain banners, the ripped cloth with the spray paint letters. And so, I'm wondering, first of all, am I just seeing that there's a style, or is it actually there? Is it completely arbitrary? Is it just a function of finding the cheapest materials, or are there some considerations that add up to a signature style? And if so, can the concept of unshared authorship coexist with a signature style? Can you say, we built this, but it's not our style?
Can I speak as a historian?
I haven't read the book or the footnotes yet.
No, I think that, I will let him speak, but I think, it's a great question. I think that Thomas' style matches the style of a lot of people who don't know how to build things. That is really, I'm sorry, Thomas, with all your respect, with all my respect to you, but I mean, I was there every morning when he gave the guidelines, like today we're gonna build a bridge. And there was 2x4s and there were plywood and the power guns and let's go.
And tape, don't forget tape.
Yeah, and the tape.
Yeah.
But obviously, I think what you're catching up is that you saw, even the colors of those banners, I remember we ordered the colors at Dia. We just needed a quantity of cloth. Thomas did not say, I want a yellow, blue, red, black. No, we ordered, and those were the ones that came. Trying to think, even the chairs were not done by Thomas. There were people doing it for him. And the banners, I did those, the theater, I did those. The Gramsci Theater plaques. So I think that maybe what I'm trying to say is that here we go to the Joseph Beuys principle, that everybody is an artist. And you just have to do it.
Yeah, my contribution to your question is, first of all, it's never, I'm sorry, but I never used the term style. I think style comes from fashion, no, not from art. But I use the term of aesthetic. And of course, it's one of my form and force in one of my is one of my terms in my form and force field between art, philosophy, politics, and aesthetics. It's only one. So aesthetic, yes, because the artist has to pay first for his aesthetic. He has to do it and he has to pay for it, for his material, for the way he does. But it's only one part. So I assume completely I pay for this aesthetic. But it's never a style, it's something I'm interested in, I'm interested in politics, like I'm interested in philosophy, like I'm interested in a term of love. And it has sometimes a part of complication or complexity or difficulty, or sometimes also some people a little bit too much look into it because they think it's about being informed about something. But I'm sure the big question in forest houses was not about the aesthetic, about the Gramsci Monument. And even more, you know, when there was, in the beginning, I remember, there was a discussion with how it looks like. And I could show them, the people of forest houses, but also the helpers, the crew, that I made exhibition in museums with the same aesthetic. It was so not the aesthetic of forest houses, in a way, the poor or whatever, you know? It is an aesthetic, I assume, completely. And yes, it's my 100% also, this aesthetic. It's a part of also that you can share with others to say, you know, I make it like this for my reasons. I try to explain the people. And it was a positive point that it was not looking like this, because it was in forest houses, the whole thing. Because it was just based on what is necessary to do. And therefore, the aesthetic I use is this one. And when it's a repetition of this, I assume it completely.
Yeah, and these materials are really functional, and they're accessible. And that's not something that you usually associate with style. You know, these are really different things.
There's a man behind you.
There's a man with a big hand in the back. Man with a big hand.
Thank you for the research aspect of this whole thing and the idea of transparency in the budget. Could you share with us the overall budget for the project and some of the breakdown in terms of...
Here I'm going to be a pure capitalist.
Well, just in terms of the also... Would you just share with us the overall budget and maybe the breakdown for, say, administration, artist fees, materials, and labor?
It's there. I need to be tough. I need to be tough. Because, you know, this little book took about a year to make. And I'm going to be tough and say, no, I won't be able to give it to you. I can let you read it here in the footnote at the end. But that's not what I'm going to be talking about tonight. I love money, and I'm not tonight.
Would you guys take another question? Or
yeah, there was a man in the back by the lamp.
I have the mic right now.
Oh, okay.
I have a question for Erik, and that is, I'm curious what residents or participants took away from the whole project in terms of what struck them or what inspired them about Gramsci himself, his ideas, his life history, his writings, his prison experience. You know, I'm really curious about that because, you know, it's not every day in this country that we have a major project like this focused on a Marxist, and not just an academic Marxist, but an engaged Marxist. I think that's really what kind of blew the top off my mind when I first heard about the project. So I'm just really curious about, you know, what people learned, how they engage with the ideas and the discussion and in the theater projects and all that, if you wouldn't mind talking about that a bit.
Well, most of the people at the beginning, like myself, didn't know anything about Gramsci, just like I didn't know anything about Thomas Hirschhorn. But one of the things I did ask him to do was to send me a couple of books on Gramsci, which he did. And, you know, I did my own research and reading, but the residents themselves, they learned a lot from the stuff that Thomas actually had there from Gramsci. And I know we had a discussion one day, some of me and the guys, and Gramsci was just something, he was something like a Mandela or Malcolm X, something like that. So we related to him in that aspect, because, he was in prison, and he was in prison for just his beliefs pretty much, and his philosophy of all, every human being is an intellectual. I believe that, that's a fact. We all have our own intellect. If Yasmil may know something more than I know, but I may know something more than Yasmil know. And Thomas showed that by how he walked through the neighborhood, like you would think he lived over there for 50 years. But he had enough sense to know that, in certain places he couldn't go, but he still went. So I didn't think he was too smart doing that. But I'm just saying that, I can't say they knew it. They learned a whole lot about Gramsci. They learned enough to know his struggles and know that we can relate it to with ours. I can say they did that.
Could you say something about the audiences that came to see this monument?
Oh, it was all different. We had charter buses driving up to come see the monument. We had the mayor now, which is de Blasio. He came to see the monument, him and his son. They sat there with us for many hours. We had people from everywhere coming to the monument, riding up on bikes, chaining their bikes on the gate. It was cool. It was really cool. It was an element going on in the neighborhood that's never happened before. And the people that was coming to visit, these are people that we only saw in Midtown. They didn't come to the Bronx. So I thought that was cool. And the best thing about it was they came and they left. So that was great because that's what they thought would be the problem. But everyone knew it was something big. It was bigger than us. It was really big, and we wanted to let them know that, we know what's right from wrong, and they did it. Thomas walked through there, not a hitch, and I was proud of them. I really was.
I think on that note, we'll wrap it up. And I want to thank again Erik, Yasmil, and Thomas so much for coming. And thank you all as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
I hope that you all return tomorrow for a long day of discussion and conversation. So thank you. Yep.
We invite you tomorrow too.